Okay, so today I'm going to walk you all through a calf stretch sequence. And a lot of times our calves get really tired and we don't even realize that they get tight and tired because of shoes, right? Who figured? But especially if you're an athlete, it's really important to counterbalance and counterpose. You know, if you're walking on heels, if you're doing a lot of dancing, for example, it's important to stretch out these babies so that we don't get injuries. Okay, and let's go ahead and start. So you're going to need a couple of blocks and a blanket. So we're going to come into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. So take your hands shoulder distance, spin the palms a little bit outward, push into the inner palms, tuck your toes underneath you, and lift your hips up and back into downward facing dog. So a lot of times we're not warm or we're not as flexible. It's okay, put a little bend in the knees and then just push the hips back, push into your hands so you create that duality of pushing down through the hands and lifting up through the hips, and the spine lengthens maximally. So just take a few breaths here, and then as you're ready, your heels may or may not touch the ground. That's not so important as having your heels be directly behind your toes. So with your heels behind your toes, you're getting an even stretch on the inside and the outside of each leg, on each shin, each calf. So that's really important, even if the knees are bent. So as you take a few breaths in down dog, take your head so it's hanging, you're not holding any tension in the back of the neck. And then as you inhale, you're going to come up really high onto the balls of the feet. As you exhale, you're going to release your right heel down. Keep the heel behind the toes lengthening forward as you bend the opposite knee. Inhale, come on up to the balls of the feet again. Exhale, release the other foot. So try to push the outside edge of the heel down. That's the hardest part to get. And then coming up again, just take a few rounds, warming up the feet, pedaling the feet. And then on your last one, you're going to come on all the way up high to the balls of the feet. And then as you exhale, start to release your heels down towards the ground. Again, they might or may not touch. That's not as important. And then from here, you're going to push into the heels. Inhale, start to come forward into plank. It's like you're resisting. Somebody's holding onto your shins and you're resisting with the legs. Take an extra inhale here. And then as you exhale, push your heels back into an imaginary wall. So again, you have the duality of the chest extending and the heels pushing back. As your inner thighs rotate towards the ceiling, take an extra inhale here. On the exhale, you're going to lift your hips, push into the backs of the legs, right? Lift the hips, push the tops of the thighs back, lengthening the heels down, coming back into downward facing dog. So flowing through that a few times, resisting with the legs, extending through the chest, and then exhale, lifting the hips, letting your heels release towards the earth. A couple more times as you feel comfortable. You can always add the intensity or add rounds, extra rounds, right? Or you can just stick to a few rounds here, just 3 or 4. Right, so let's say this is our last one. Take a moment in down dog and then walk your hands back towards your feet, okay? And then you're going to separate your feet so that the toes point out a little bit and the heels point in. You're going to come onto the fingertips, inhale, knees bend. Exhale, start to drop your hips down. So it's important the knees line up over the second toes. And for a lot of people, this is really hard because they can't get their heels all the way down. So no problem. That's why we have a blanket here. You take your blanket, you put the blanket underneath your heels, and what it does is it raises the ground. So now your heels have ground to push into. So you're getting that stretch. And again, make sure that the heels are behind the second and third toes. So you're getting an even stretch on both sides of the leg. And then taking the elbows, inhale, pushing into the knees. Exhale, release the pelvis down, release the heels down. So you can hold here for a few breaths. And then whenever you feel ready to come out, just going to take your hands down to the ground, remove the blanket if you use the blanket. Then push the heels down. Push, 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 push. Start to straighten the legs slowly by pushing the tops of the thighs back. You never want to jam the knees straight, but push the tops of the thighs back. Parallel the feet and then start to walk back into down dog, but this time bend your knees as you walk into down dog. Your heels are glued to the mat, so your weight is in the heels. You can even lift the toes to test. And then start to walk your hands forward, right? The toes will eventually come down, and you're going to feel your legs working here. And slowly walking back into downward facing dog. So again, you can keep the knees bent, or you can try to approach straight legs. Take an extra couple of breaths as you lengthen out, even out. And then as you inhale, you're going to reach your right leg back, push into the left heel, push the left thigh bone back. And then as you exhale, step the foot forward between the hands. Take your blocks, put them right underneath your shoulders. And then with the back foot, you're going to walk it in about a third of the way. Okay? So your heels are lined up with one another, heel to heel. You can take the blocks under the shoulders. Inhale, push into the blocks. Exhale, release the head. So all the work here is in the back leg. You're spinning the entire inseam of that back leg towards the wall behind you. And you're going to take a few breaths here. And then when you feel ready, you're going to start to roll up to the ball of the back foot. And then exhale, release the heel. Just like you did in downward facing dog. Inhale to come up. Exhale to release it down. Let's just do one more. Inhale, come up. Exhale, let it go. Then you're going to take your blocks off to the side, put your hands down onto the ground, and then you can just walk it back into downward facing dog. Okay? Even out through your down dog. Right? See that your toes are in line with one another, and then your hands are in line with one another. And then inhale, you're going to start to release the back leg, the left leg up. Push into the right outer heel, push the top of your right sit bone up and back. Right? So that your hips are square. And then exhale, step the foot forward, place it by your left hand. Reach for your blocks once again. And then hop your back foot in about a third of the way. So again, check in with the feet. You're lining the pose up from the ground up. Push into the blocks and extend the chest. And then exhale, release the chin towards the chest. So take about a few breaths here. Really pushing into that back heel. That's where you're getting your calf stretch. And again, take a glance over at that back heel. See that it's right behind the second and third toes. And then when you're ready, inhale, coming up on the ball of the back foot. Exhale, release it down. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, release it down. Just one more. Inhale up. Exhale, down. Right, really root through the outer edge of that back foot. Take your blocks off to one side. Place your hands down on the ground. Step it back, down dog. Inhale, come onto the balls of the feet real high. And then exhale, slowly lower your knees to the ground. Uncurl your toes. And just take a child's pose. That's it. So now we'll have loose calves.